Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wesbite.
Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Startups Live. I'm your host, Jim Ryan, entrepreneur, investor, and startup enthusiast. Back again. We are in season 2 of Sunshine Startups Live, and I'm joined, of course, by my good friend and colleague here at the Levan Center, Dr. John Wesbite. Great to be with you, my friend.
Good morning, my friend. It is great to be with you as well. Welcome to the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs. John Wesbite, Chief Innovation Officer here at NSU, Florida, and Executive Director of the Levan Center of Innovation, a 54,000 square foot playground for entrepreneurs. I am so excited today. It's like the color purple around here today.
We're going to break into the Prince song.
Okay. Purple.
Exactly. No, please don't do that.
Okay. I can't sing, except in the shower when no one's listening.
Well, this is exciting because we have a great entrepreneur that I've known for a number of years. We were walking down a little bit of memory lane before we started the podcast today. So excited to have CEO, founder of BizHack Academy, Dan Grech, who's going to share with us his bio, how he's revolutionizing and sharing the tools and know-how of AI with small and mid-sized businesses across the country. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning author as well. And so really excited to have Dan. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, it's a real honor to be here, guys. Thank you for the invite.
So Dan, I know a little bit about your background, and I'm always fascinated when I talk to you because you've got some great nuggets and stories to share. And one of the big ones is your background and how you started being a journalist. And I'm always thrilled to hear this story. I've heard it a couple of times, but for our audience that hasn't heard it, share with us your pretty incredible background.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to actually throw in a little bit of an extra element to this, which is I've had 2 great professional loves in my life. I feel so blessed. You know, many of us are lucky to even have one. Those 2 professional loves were journalism and entrepreneurship. And as I reflect on my childhood, both of them combined when I was in high school. So I started to sell blow pops out of my locker for a quarter. Back in the mid-'90s when I was growing up in suburban Philadelphia. And I became wildly successful at this. And I became known as the Candy Man. And so I was carrying around a ton of cash in $1 bills and change. And so it became a little bit of a security risk. So I remember I used to lock it all up in my locker in gym class. Anyway, I grew up, in the poorest kid in a wealthy neighborhood. I had, a school teacher and a clothing salesman for my parents, and everyone else was lawyers and doctors. And so when I went back after gym class one day and I opened my locker, I definitely noticed that there was money missing. Someone had stolen money from my locker, my locked locker, while I was in gym class. But what was weird about it is they only stole the large bills, the 20s and the 10s, and they left the 5s and the 1s. So it was like a sort of the signature of the thief. So I started asking around, had anyone else experienced this? And it turned out a lot of people had. And I had just enrolled that semester as my junior year in a journalism class. And I had to come up with an assignment. So I came up with the idea, hey, I'm going to do a school-wide survey and to see who had this money stolen from them. And so I surveyed the school, and it was an epidemic. More than half of the students had money stolen from the lockers, both women and men, and a quarter of the freshmen who had been on campus for less than 2 months. So I interviewed everyone around campus. I interviewed the head of security, the gym teacher, the principal, published this big expose. The headline of the article was, "Read this article fast before it's stolen." And it caused a complete sensation. I remember that feeling. And this is like 2 months into my first journalism class. I ended up getting, by the way, a B- on the paper because I hadn't done the exact assignment. But I saw everyone reading this, and I just was hooked. Fast forward a week later, I was doing some follow-ups, and I learned that the head of campus security had been quietly let go. It turns out that he was the one that was doing the stealing, and I was just hooked. And so I left my blow pop business and left entrepreneurship behind. And for the next 20 years, had this extraordinary career in journalism. And then in 2013, suddenly, unexpectedly, publicly lost my job as the news director of the local NPR station. It was industry news. It was a major, to this day, I don't fully understand what happened, but it was an incredible professional setback. And then over the course of the decade that has followed, rediscovered my blow pop days and rediscovered entrepreneurship. And now I run a business that I'm building a business that helps other businesses build theirs.
So you might be the number 3 or 4th guest on our show that started selling candy at school. I remember a couple of our past guests, which is kind of interesting. But you may be the first Bopop. The other one was chocolates and whatnot, from what I remember. They actually maybe even wrote a song about you, the Candyman. Candyman can. So let's talk a little bit about BizHack. And I know you have a really interesting career that took you through media and print and press. Radio as well, right? And all of this adventure that you've been on led you to BizHack. So let's talk a little bit more about what is BizHack. How did that actually come to being, and what does the organization actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, after I left journalism, like so many ex-journalists who can't find work in the media industry, they go into PR. So I went into PR, and then I went into marketing, and then I went into digital marketing, and then I started to teach a class at Miami-Dade College, where you used to work, in digital marketing for small businesses, because I love to learn, I love to teach what I want to learn. Mm-hmm. And I spent 2 years doing that as a side hustle, being a teacher practitioner, teaching, so because it made me better at doing and doing, helping inform my teaching. And then after about 2 years, now Miami-Dade Commissioner Eileen Higgins, who was a student in the class, took me by my lapels and she said, Dan, it is so clear to me that you do not like your day job and you love this teaching. You need to quit both and start your business. And she literally sat me down and we registered my domain and we submitted the SunBiz registration right then and there. And in December of 2017, BizHack Academy was born. And I quit my side hustle, I quit my day job, and I launched an academy to train small businesses in digital marketing. And the course that we launched with, which we run to this day, was a course in Facebook advertising. Now it's Meta AI advertising, that over the course of training more than 1,000 businesses, we've generated more than $13 in revenue for every dollar they spend in advertising while in the course. And watching that unfold in real time, like usually I like to joke that, you know, my son, he's in pre-K, his teacher is going to see the fruition of her labor in a decade from now or 2 decades from now. I got to see it in real time. And I watched over the course of 7 weeks, these business owners go from hating marketing, thinking that it was a distraction and a waste of money, to watching them make money in real time and just seeing the light turn on. And it's, as an educator, it's just addictive. I mean, to be, you guys are coaches, mentors, educators, it is addictive work. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it. And the more people you touch, the more people you want to touch. And I am absolutely at the kind of peak of Maslow's hierarchy right now, just self-actualizing and just, I'm hungry, and it gets hungrier every day. But it's to touch more people with what I do. And obviously, in late 2022, when ChatGPT was released, AI became inescapable when it comes to marketing and sales, which is the real focus, and would love to dig in with that on that with you guys. I know it's an area of passion for both of you.
So let's do it now then. Let's kind of talk about that, because there's this huge wave of AI, generative AI, robotic AI that's coming, and you're an interesting case study because you were originally a startup yourself. Obviously trying to acquire business. You are seeing on the front lines today in the SMB, small, medium-sized businesses, sort of an interest in AI today. They're hearing about it. There may be there's certainly curiosity. How do I implement? How do I get a hold of this? So I would imagine that you being on the front line yourself, there's a lot of hand raisers going kind of, Dan, teach me what this is all about. How do I implement that in my business? So kind of share with us what are those sort of talking points and hot points for those small, medium-sized businesses that are looking for answers and how to implement AI today?
It's such a big question. I'm going to start with a couple stats. There hasn't been a lot of study yet in the field of applied AI, right? The tools of generative AI that were really kind of the arms race, if you will, that launched in November of 2022 with the release of ChatGPT 3.5 that, primarily had been between Google and Microsoft-backed OpenAI, and now is incorporating Meta with its, just recently, Amazon released Q, its answer to that. Apple is integrating it in everything they do. Anthropic and Claude. The proliferation of tools really started in 2024, but it all began in late 2022. And so what I noticed is when I started incorporating this into our training in 2023, the explosion of curiosity and interest, but with a lot of just exploration. People didn't really know what these were. It's gotten a little clearer what they are at this point, which is they're extraordinary efficiency tools. 9 of the 20 use cases in a study are related to marketing, sales, and customer experience, an area of your expertise. The other 11 are more operational and data analytical in nature. So I really focus on those 9 out of 20. So almost half are related to customer acquisition. And they basically split into 2 categories: things that make you able to do more, better, faster. So higher quality content, text to video, better quality writing, more, and then the others are related to streamlining the processes of producing that content and intelligent automation that makes, chatbots smarter, which is an area that you're a big part of. So when I talk to businesses, I say, number one, this will help you grow faster. This will help you multiply. This is a force multiplier for your marketing and sales efforts, and it will save you time, both in the production of the marketing and sales and from a personal productivity perspective. And this is the number one thing I want to share, which is the easiest and fastest way to implement AI in your business is for personal productivity. The average business owner that uses AI in their business reports saving 13 hours a week.
That's substantial.
And a lot of those savings are on more administrative and operational, I call it the boring but important stuff, that then allows, and 1/3 of them then invest that time savings in growing the business faster. And so one of the ways to think about AI for growth from an executive perspective is leverage the time saved in other areas and then investing that in your growth.
So there's a lot of interesting things that you said there, and we deal with a lot of businesses, particularly the early stage startups that start off as a small business but want to accelerate to become a big business, and that's really what the Levan Center is here to do. It's not to help keep sustainable businesses in the small sector small, but to grow them, and that next Uber Eats, that next DoorDash, that next Amazon hopefully comes out of environments like this. And often we hear about people saying, I'm going to create a tech company. That's sort of in the past, but now everything's a tech company. And now you hear this trend where I'm going to create an AI company, or should I create a company that incorporates AI, which is a lot different. And one of the questions that's commonly asked of us is, can I afford it? First of all, I don't know what it is. So how do I go and identify how I can use it? And then once I do identify, how do I bring it into my business environment, knowing that I have very limited resources to be able to do so? And you gave a use case, but let's take that a little bit further. I'm a small business. I'm starting out. I don't have any funding. I'm waiting for that pie in the sky dream to happen. And I want to accelerate really fast. I want to build fast, invest fast, hopefully exit fast. How do I bring in AI into my world so that I know about it? And then how do I use it knowing that I have limited resources?
Yeah. So you made a really important distinction, which is a company that's building an AI-powered technology and a company that's leveraging AI as an efficiency and productivity tool. And what I hear you asking is about that second category. I'd love to revisit the first part because I have some ideas about if you're looking to build an AI-powered technology, where to look for that opportunity, because it's the biggest opportunity I see in the market right now is these niche AI tools. But we'll talk about that in a sec. The company that's looking to leverage AI as an efficiency tool and is trying to figure out where to get started, number one is it starts at the top. And so my biggest recommendation to business owners is that they spend a minimum, research says that they need to spend a minimum of 10 hours to gain basic competency on the tool. So Ethan Malik out of Wharton has been studying the usage of AI, and he says it takes about 10 hours to get proficient in things like prompt engineering and just understanding the tool. So that's number one, is get started using it. And my highest recommendation for that is to not use it in your business to start. You need to starting a business is all about de-risking activities. And the number one way to de-risk AI use is to use it for your personal life. The number one use case outside of business for AI is as a companion. Play with some of the AI companions, have conversations with it. My favorite use case is to interact with your children. So I tell interactive bedtime stories with my 4-year-old. One of my favorite stories is my neighbors were moving and they had this big fluffy dog called Wally. And Wally, would poop and pee on our yard, and he would knock over my children, and my kids every day after school would go knock on our neighbor's door to ask to play with Wally, and half the time, got bruised by it. But when Wally was going to move and his family was going to move, I had AI write a letter in dog from woof language saying goodbye to my children. And we then mailed it, and they received it, and my kids, you should have seen their eyes when they opened it up. That kind of thing. It's just fun, and it's light. When we were in Spain, my father is from Spain, and we were visiting Spain with my kids, and my daughter, who's 11, lost her tooth. And interestingly, Ratoncito Perez, which is Little Rat Perez, is the tooth fairy in Spain. And so we had to, of course, have Ratoncito Perez was the one who was leaving the euros behind, and he had to write a letter, but it was in Spanish, and it was a poem. And so that kind of thing, and leveraging ChatGPT to help with that.
Wow.
And so that would be a starting point, right? And what that does is it gives you familiarity with the tool. It demystifies it, because most of the CEOs that I speak to talk about feeling a little bit afraid, a little intimidated. And there's also a lot of media around the dangers, and they're real, especially going into this election season. There was a statement made in May of 2023 that the dangers of AI. It was a one-sentence statement signed by the Geoffrey Hinton, the founder from Google, the father of AI, he's called, from Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and it said basically the risk of civilization level annihilation from AI is as significant as a pandemic or nuclear war. And it was a single sentence statement. So that's real. And we have to honor that. There's also tremendous issues of bias, there are legal complications, there are ethical complications. And that's mostly what journalists cover, my former colleagues. And on the other side, it's like mostly upside for small businesses as an efficiency tool. And so you need to kind of break through some of the fear and uncertainty, and then leverage it as a personal productivity tool to start. And then the next set of use cases where it's easiest is in marketing and sales, content creation. And so that's where I'd recommend you start. One last thing I'll say is no one tool can really get it. The average business that uses AI uses a minimum of 4 tools. And what you see when you see use cases like the ones we do in our courses, they always will take an output from a ChatGPT, then import it into Canva, use the plugin with DID to do the voiceover. And so right now it's kind of piecemeal, and so you need to know multiple tools in order to really make it work.
It's interesting you sharing a lot of this, because recently you spoke to Congress. You were asked to kind of share your insights on this. Your background in journalism, I'm sure helped a great deal in kind of creating the narrative of this revolution, this 4th industrial revolution, about what's happening. So kind of scribing that as maybe even a little bit of a short-term historian on what's happening with AI, and then coupled with your know-how and knowledge about AI. What was that experience like speaking to Congress? You could sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a real challenge. So what was that experience like for you?
I call it simultaneously the most important thing I've ever done and the least consequential thing I've ever done. and the reason why is because it's very odd, right? When you're looking at the hearing on C-SPAN, they very intentionally just focus on the one congressperson asking the question. I was at the House Committee on Small Business, and it was their year-end hearing, and it was like a year in review. And they invited me because at this point I've trained more than 5,000 small businesses in how to leverage AI for productivity. The productivity gains of the average small business is approximately the equivalent of one part-time contractor. So these AI tools, which like ChatGPT costs $20 a month, is equivalent to a part-time contractor. So very compelling. So they wanted me to get those perspectives, and they would have, there were 20, 25 people in the committee, and what was so weird, and I was warned about this ahead of time, is they when we started, there were about 6 of them there, and then they would pan and they would have one of them ask a question, and while that happened, some people from the other side would walk in and fill in a couple of the seats, and then they would pan to the other side, and that person who just asked a question would leave. And so it was this constant feeling of like you're speaking, and the only person literally who made it through the entire hearing was the chairman, because he had to. Right, because he had the gavel.
He had the gavel in his hand. Right.
And I'm pretty sure he would have left too. So the United States Congress has not regulated social media. And we are absolutely just leaving it to the European Union to lead the way in regulating these technologies that U.S. companies are building. And I think that that's a dereliction of duty, and I told them that. The other thing I'll say is we are entering a minimum 20-year retooling of our economy, where the entire workforce and every small business, every business will need to become fluent in AI. And we're entering what I call the AI haves and have-nots. And I actually would even argue that you can make it without a website, especially if you're a community-based business and everybody knows you and you've been there for a while. And about half of businesses still don't have websites. I really worry that you're not going to be able to make it without AI, because the kind of efficiency that we're seeing with these relatively clumsy first tools is going to just get magnified as the tools get stronger. And if these businesses cannot keep up, they're going to get left behind. And I think as a society, we have to invest tremendous, billions of dollars in trying, especially in marginalized communities, to make that transition happen. Same thing for the workforce, right? There's going to be tremendous job displacement, where some jobs are going to go away and new jobs are going to form. And we as a society have so much invested in making sure that transition happens. And organizations, universities like Broward College and Nova Southeastern, and particularly the Levan Center, which is really about professional development and bringing a startup from idea to exit, is going to have a huge role in that, as will, I hope, BizHack Academy.
You brought up a very good point about how the U.S. is falling behind and watching what the EU does. So the United States always wants to be at the forefront and the one leading the charge rather than being the follower. And this seems like an amazing opportunity for us to actually have some kind of an imprint in what the future looks like. Why are we following the EU? Why are we not taking the lead?
Yeah. Little bit above my pay grade to answer that, but it's about the dysfunction, in our political system and, manifesting right now with the protests on our college campuses. It's just we're a little bit of a broken country in that regard. And, the EU is a technocracy, and it doesn't really actually directly relate to the individual, because the populations in all these countries are similarly broken and split, But the EU is just, done a much better job of getting ahead on issues around like privacy, regulation of social media, and increasingly, regulation of AI. And we need guardrails. Absolutely need guardrails. Every business owner, every major tech company that's building the foundational technologies around this agrees on this point. But they also it's cynical because they know that Congress isn't going to do anything about it. And it's really dangerous to allow these companies to self-police. I'll give you a really vivid and kind of sort of funny example of this. So these, most of what we think of AI is a large language model, and large language models are built on like just massive amounts of text. And they basically have run out of text to study. And if they want to build more powerful models, they need to figure out more text to study. And there's lots of different ways. They're actually having AIs that generate text that then they then study to build the bigger models. They've, every single thing that's publicly available on the internet, including copyrighted material, they're ingesting. And there's this one great expose in the New York Times recently that OpenAI, when it was building ChatGPT-4, created a technology called Whisper, which transcribed pretty much every video on YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. OpenAI is supported by Microsoft. So they basically went to their competitor's website, violating the terms of service, and then basically transcribed every single video and ingested that into the technology to build the LLM. Well, Google engineers knew they were doing this, and they didn't say a word. And you want to know why? Because Google was doing the same thing. Google's engineers were doing the exact same thing in violation of their own terms of service to build these technologies. So there's a lot of corner cutting and,
the Wild West.
It's the absolute Wild West. And so, we still have that history hasn't been written yet. And I guarantee you when it is, it's an ugly one. I mean, there was a reason that Sam Altman was ousted briefly as the CEO of OpenAI, because the folks who actually knew what he was up to said, this is not okay. And so the big tech will not police themselves. And so right now it's going to be Europe will be the policeman, but then there's another piece to this, right? Which is China is ahead of us on AI. They have been investing more and for longer with the smartest and hardest working engineers. They are a fearsome competitor. And yet I'm pretty expert at this. I couldn't even tell you what they're up to. And the reason why is because they're not making it public. And they're probably looking at us and laughing because they're like, why are you guys publishing, your research? So there is, on the other side of this, the sense that in our one major global competitor, they're probably ahead of us on AI, and we don't even know.
That's a scary proposition for sure. I want to circle back a little bit about BizHack Academy. Obviously, coming out of the box, had some great traction. COVID obviously happened. There were a lot of challenges with all startups, all companies during COVID. Now you've got this, nice adrenaline shot, right? The revolution of AI, ChatGPT, and the whole generative AI revolution that's going on today. What are you doing with these small, medium-sized businesses? How are they contracting you? Yeah. How long is the engagement? What are they asking you to train them on, and kind of how does that facilitation go, Dan?
Yeah, well, I want to take a second, like a beat, and just talk to you about the journey, because where I've landed took 7 years of work, and it came to fruition in many ways with AI, but the seeds of it were planted far earlier. And, it's a special joy, to be talking to you, Jim, because you were there at the very beginning of this journey. You were my mentor as part of my original venture mentoring team. So, when BizHack started, it started just as a course. And it was a course in how to leverage Facebook advertising to grow your business. And The truth of the matter is I kind of held my nose when I taught Facebook because I've not always agreed with the decisions that company has made. I'm not particularly a huge fan myself of social media, but I saw the results, that 13-to-1 return on ad spend. And it was, I always felt like I was serving the small business and giving them a systematic way to market rather than random acts of marketing, which throwing spaghetti against the wall doesn't always stick. So we wanted to give them a systematic way to market, and we felt that Facebook advertising was a great way to do it, and that's where we started. And it was in-person classes, and then COVID happened, and we had to pivot to online. And that actually was a pretty quick switch. We were already preparing for that switch anyway. And then we actually doubled in size because everybody during COVID had time and money, the government money, and nothing to do with their business. So there was a huge, and most training companies saw a huge jump in 2020. And then we experienced with the reopening of the economy in Florida, a massive drop in 2021. And so this up and then down was just brutal. And so when the down started to happen, we realized we needed to retool the business model. And we retooled it to become, instead of having, business owners that don't have time and money paying for individual courses, I began to get much better at soliciting money from business support organizations like governments, universities, banks, and getting them to subsidize the courses. And that is the model that I am in love with. And the reason why is because, the reason why I'm in love with that model is because it allows the business owners to not have to worry about paying for the high quality training that they need and just focus on showing up and doing the work, which frankly is enough of a challenge on its own. And so that has been the focus of the retooled business model, and AI and the incredible 20-year challenge we have with AI has been the shot in the arm to the business. The need that we're fulfilling is of interest to more and more funders, and more money is being poured into it. And that has become our growth opportunity and where I'm leaning all in, which is going to municipalities. Miami-Dade County is my largest client. But going to municipalities, I'm about to forge partnerships with a couple different universities to bring this to a larger number of folks and to do it in a free or subsidized way.
All right, let's have some fun. Rubik's Cube time. So I'm not going to ask you to solve either of these. But you mentioned Wally, the dog. So let's talk animals for a moment. Let's pretend there are no rules. And if you could sit down with any animal, no matter what kind of animal, and you could have a conversation and actually communicate with each other, what kind of animal would it be, and what would that discussion look like?
It would be a dolphin.
Okay.
Because I like intelligent creatures, and dolphins are about the smartest. There's that great Douglas Adams book, Goodbye and Thank You for the Fish. Which is about dolphins basically actually being the ones running the world. We just didn't know it. Yeah, so I would ask dolphins what the world looks like from underwater. I live about 4 blocks from the ocean, and I think about when you walk off the beach into the water, except for maybe the savannah in Africa, it's like one of the last truly wild places left. And I would just ask him, what does it look like seeing humans from your perspective?
That's kind of interesting. And I'm a big underwater guy. I love scuba diving, et cetera. And I'm going to be in Africa next month, funny enough. But that was one of the more interesting responses that I've had. Okay, since you did well and I didn't stump you, then can you solve this? And I will tell you that when Jim gave this to me, later that day, I accidentally dropped it and a whole bunch of pieces fell out. I don't think I put them back together again.
Oh, that's funny. This is like a for those of you listening, this is like a dodecahedron.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And it is, what I loved about journalism, what I love about business is it's a puzzle. And I love solving hard puzzles. This is about the hardest puzzle I've ever seen. This is solvable.
No, I don't think it is
well,
at this
since
point.
it had to be pieced together, it's probably not.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I can't help you with that.
Yeah.
But, it's funny. This is traditional, square, this cubed Rubik's Cube is like journalism. And this, dodecahedron Rubik's Cube is like business ownership. And part of the reason why journalism was my first love, and this is my enduring love, building a business, is because I just love the puzzle. I'm addicted to the challenge, the constant challenge. Like, you think you know what you're doing, right? And then it just throws you for a loop. And I love helping other businesses kind of unlock that as well. So
I love the transition. So Dan, congratulations on all the success. BizHack Academy, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of the business?
Yeah. Well, because I know you guys serve a lot of entrepreneurs, I did want to just share this one little piece that I had alluded to earlier, which is about, we talked about how to get started as a business and using AI to streamline and create content and so forth. There is another opportunity that I see, which is if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for a business idea, what I'm seeing right now is AI's they call it intelligent automation. So it's automation, which is taking boring but important tasks and automating them, combined with the intelligence of artificial intelligence, which allows you to maybe take a 20% solution and turn it into an 80% solution. That's really what intelligent automation is. Now, the tools that these big companies are building, like ChatGPT, like Gemini, like Claude, are foundational technologies that are out of reach of any, these are called large language models. And so there's a thing that you can do is build something on top of it in the tech stack called a small language model that's built to solve a really specific issue, like maybe diagnose a very specific issue, or write an RFP if you're a construction firm, or do some boring but important task inside of a business. And that, to me, is the big business opportunity, and where I see a lot of the money being made is if you are really expert in like a niche problem for a specific industry and a very particular customer set, and you can come up with an AI technology that uses a small language model that solves for it, I think you'll do extremely well.
It's a good nugget to pass.
And the truth is that it's not that expensive to do that.
And they could find out more about you and the business?
Yeah, so bizhack.com, bizhack.com. We run a free masterclass series where we talk about a lot of these things and use cases and tools. And you can find that on our website. And all of those masterclasses that we do are also available on YouTube at BizHack Academy.
Terrific. Dan Grech, CEO, founder of BizHack Academy. Congratulations, my friend. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast, and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.